Hello, everyone. Welcome to Speed 5. We have an exciting night tonight. I'm, of course, here with Knor.
Hello.
And we have an exciting night planned. Something very new to our channel.
It's exciting for several reasons. First of all, it is our first Victoria 3 focused show. Yes. Second of all, we have no idea how this is going to go.
It's going to be a great night of first for this channel, so hopefully.
Yes.
Fingers crossed it'll go super well.
You know what? We should probably start by explaining what Save the Save is.
We should.
So what we've done is me and Count Krista talked a bit, and we've decided on a game type format that's essentially you take two players, you ask them to pick a country, the same country, and then we ask them, hey, you have 60 minutes to get the highest, well, today we're going to be playing for the highest GDP. And then they do that for 60 minutes. Except, of course, we throw a spanner in the works by having them first play on their opponent's save, as it were, for 5 minutes to try and ruin the nation as much as possible. We have a few rules to that regard. For the first 5 minutes, when they do ruin, they're not allowed to destroy any factories. And that's it. I think they have a gentleman's agreement to not start any wars. We'll see if that's upheld or not. But officially, the rules as they stand at the moment is in the first 5 minutes, when you're ruining your opponent's nation, you're not allowed to destroy any factories. But anything else goes. After those 5 minutes, they come back. We talk to them a bit because we need to give them some time to actually swap over and get to the computer that they're actually playing on for the next 60 minutes. And for this first episode, we've invited TheGraveOne and Aldrahill, and we'll talk to them shortly. That's essentially what the game is. That's why it's called Save the Save. We're going to do a best of 2. And that's how the format is going to move forward. Now, when I described this to the Victoria 3 marketing team at Paradox, they were like, you realize that it's quite easy to destroy a nation really quickly. And yes, we do. With that said, this is essentially the pilot episodes. These rules will most likely get tweaked. And Lady Magnus, if people watching have any suggestions, where should they put those?
They should put those on our Discord. So ! Discord, guys, and you'll find a link right in there. Go to the suggestions area and let me know what you think. Let me know any suggestions that you have for any of our shows. We currently have one for Masters Universalis right now of creating your own challenges. And whomever wins that gets one of these.
Yeah, one of those.
One of these hoodies. They're beautiful.
Not one of these. Actually, I don't know. They can probably request one of these. We have some of these as well. With that said, our players, our stalwarts of industry and so forth are standing ready. So we should probably see how they're doing.
I love it. TheGraveOne, I have to start with you because that is just, that's glorious. I absolutely love it. So, TheGraveOne, how are we feeling about tonight?
I'm feeling pretty good. I have a great plan to destroy any nation that is picked. Any nation I can destroy. And then any nation I can rebuild. I am the capitalist of capitalists. So I'm excited.
Okay.
Confident.
Aldrahill, how are you doing tonight?
I'm good. I'm confident. I'm just not as fashionable as TheGraveOne. I'm letting everyone down. Damn.
I was going to do a Rasputin reference, but then I realized that would have been very mean.
I don't mind, man.
In all fairness,
I'll just pretend the mustache is cosplay. Yeah.
In all fairness, Aldra, he did. I want to say TheGraveOne actually said earlier today that he was going to dress up for this. So.
Well, he did. He was going to practice with that thing that I, for some reason, have forgotten how to pronounce properly. One of the things we didn't mention in the rules section, because we just ran through it, of course, is that you'll be playing a best of 2, and you'll be playing different nations both times. You've both picked a nation, and we are in a bit going to fail spectacularly to try and do a coin toss. Whoever wins that coin toss gets to pick we'll play your nation pick first, essentially. But before we get to that, any fighting words you want to say beforehand? GraveOne?
No, because I have done this before and it has failed spectacularly. So I am going to say, good luck, have fun. You got this.
Nice. Aldrahill,
You too, buddy. You too.
Oh, that's nice. One of the things we should mention as well, right at the start here, is of course we're going to be playing on the public available beta for Victoria 3. If you don't know about it, you can go onto Steam and select it in the beta branch. There should be one accessible to all players. As far as I'm told, it also means that some of the things are a bit different compared to base game. One of those at the moment is that we do not have access to observer mode. So when we talk to our casters and when our casters talk over GraveOne and Aldrahill, they will actually just be watching you guys' POV. So
make it super interesting.
Or just, don't move the camera too quickly. I guess that's the takeaway. We should get through the most important part, the most exciting part.
Is that the coin toss?
That is the coin toss. Am I going to be able...
Honora's going to be doing it because mine's already on the floor.
Yeah. Am I going to be able to... normally when we do coin tosses here at Speed 5, we have a tendency to call them coin tosses for whatever reason. And I've been really good about not saying that up till this point. We have some lovely fantasy-esque coins here. And because GraveOne came dressed up, I'm going to let you pick. Do you want scales or do you want the dragon?
Oh, dragon for sure.
Okay, so just to confirm here to Lady Magnus that this is the scale side.
Yes.
And that's the dragon side. And now I do have an extra coin here on the table if I fail this.
We had 3 coins, but one of them's on the floor.
Yes. Okay. Let's see it. Let's see how this goes. Oh, I've never been this nervous.
Oh,
holy shit!
fancy.
I'm so proud of myself. Okay, so what did we get?
That would be scales.
Aldra, what is your nation pick?
I'm picking the eternally balanced nation of France.
That means in a moment you'll have 5 minutes to try and ruin each other's France. And then, of course, we'll come back here to talk to you guys while you swap. So we are going to let you go set up for France, and we're going to drag in our 2 casters.
Our 2 favorite casters. One of them's new.
Midgeman, Absolute Habibi, how you guys doing?
I'm doing great. Doing great.
Yeah, pleasure to be here as always. Also, we're not both new. In fact, me and Habibi cast together on the most recent CIC, I believe.
Okay, Habibi is new for me.
Yeah.
Habibi is new for me. That is, and Midgeman, I noticed, nice get up there.
Look, I heard some people were dressing up. We couldn't just leave the GraveOne to be the only person dressed up, so I jumped on the bandwagon, you know?
I appreciate you taking the bullet for the rest of us.
So, Habibi, how do you feel about what nation Aldrahill picked?
Well, he picked France. That's like I feel like one of the easiest nations to get the highest GDP. I'm really interested to see how they ruin each other's nations, because if there's no factories being deleted and they both have a gentleman's agreement for war, what else can they do? It's going to be really interesting to see.
Midgeman, do you believe that gentleman's agreement is going to hold up, or do you think that someone's going to declare war?
I think for this first of the best of 2, it's going to hold up. But by the second one, everything's going to just go out the window and all the gloves are going to come off and the real ruining will begin.
Honestly, I'm kind of hoping that does happen.
I mean, well, one of the things I've said too, because I've explained this format to a lot of people and several of our content creators that we've worked with before, and I've always been like, okay, guys, this is the first one. This is the pilot. I want to make sure that it's fun to watch. So, you don't need to destroy everything, but we'll see how long my words linger when someone feel like they're losing. But
yeah, if they can hear me right now, guys, feel free to not, listen to that gentleman's agreement.
I don't know. We'll see. Midgeman, Habibi, we are going to hand it over to you guys, and you'll have to lead us through this very quick ruining phase, hopefully. So take it away, guys.
Awesome.
Okay, so Habibi, when it gets to this, I'm going to be able to control what perspective, well, the audience get to see. So if there's something particularly going on your end, do shout it out. But what do you expect we're going to see? Because I have a theory of one thing that people might do in terms of the ruining phase, but I'd like to hear what your opinions are.
When it comes to ruining, I was really thinking about the war and just trying to concede as much as possible. But if they're not doing that, I'm actually kind of lost. Maybe it says no deleting factories, but it doesn't say anything about deleting other types of buildings, like maybe barracks, something like that.
Yep.
I'm not really sure, Midgeman. What do you think?
So what I think I would do is, like you say, I'd delete barracks, but then I'd also expel diplomats everywhere I can. I'm France. I have a lot of borders with a lot of countries. Just anger everyone. If you have no troops and you've got a lot of land that's free for people to take, people are going to try that. So that's, I think, what I would do in this scenario. Just try to make everyone angry. Not even on pause. Just make everyone angry so that when the game does unpause, that's when the wars happen. Because hey, that's it. That abides by the gentleman's agreement. But anyway, let's get into the game. I'm going to let the 2 players know that they can start, and here we go. So we've got TheGraveOne on screen right now. He's going straight for the government reform. What do you make of that?
I think he's just gonna try to piss off as much people as possible. Maybe try to get a revolution ASAP. So Aldrahill will have to immediately deal with that. That would be pretty crazy. He just comes in and immediately he's in a revolution.
Yep.
That actually is a great idea there. And
theocracy. So Aldra was just hovering over the government types. Unfortunately, he's moved away from it now, but he was thinking of trying to get theocracy going, which I think would start a civil war, as you're saying there.
And he's wasting no time at all. He's decreasing the education level. He's not wasting time at all. And now he's expelling diplomats with everyone.
There we go. Oh, the clicks are real. Aldrahill looks like a man with a plan, and the plan is just piss everybody off. Look at this, just all the expelling diplomats coming on in. Oh, let's go back over to TheGraveOne. Let's see.
He's doing the exact same thing.
It's the exact same thing. Oh, okay.
The entire Europe is
I think this is far more efficient, though, from TheGraveOne here. TheGraveOne's got a list that he's clicking through, whereas Aldra is finding the countries manually. Oh, I think TheGraveOne's got an edge here. This is brilliant. Wow, this is a spammer's art of gaming.
By the end of this, the entire world will hate France. That's for sure.
Yeah, that is definitely for sure. Oh, what about destroying construction offices or things like that? Like, if we can't destroy factories, do they count as factories? Like, what's the and ruining infrastructure?
You're right about that one, but what we see, what he's doing here, he's building extra construction to take on even more debt. So if you have a bunch of construction, you're going to be taking a lot of debt because you're building way more than your capacity. And you can already see he's already taking on maybe 1/10 of France's debt limit on TheGraveOne.
That's absolutely savage. One thing we just saw Aldra do, he has moved away from it now. He's now doing the construction sectors, as you just said. He just took on some, what they called, luxury taxes, like the extra taxes on the highest tax level right now, just angering everyone. Surprisingly, though, didn't take a grain tax. Normally, grain taxes are a big no-no in terms of turning people revolutionary. But, yeah, those service taxes and wine taxes. I suppose with France, it's got to depend on what the what's the good, like the cultural good for France that they require. Is it wine?
I believe it is wine. It is wine. And if we do go back to TheGraveOne, he's about to reach his debt capacity. He is about to reach his debt capacity, Midgeman. This is going to be a bankrupt nation. Aldrahill is going to have to turn around a bankrupt nation when he gets on this. It's going to be very difficult for him, especially considering that Aldrahill still has given TheGraveOne still a full money capacity.
Yep, currently full money capacity, but they are trying to put serfdom in as well, which is going to be very interesting. If that does get passed, it's got a 15% chance, no, 22% chance of succeeding at this moment in time, which is not a non-starter there. There's 1 minute 20 left. 1 minute 20 isn't that like isn't too short, but is enough time to ruin a lot of things, especially at speed 5.
Oh, and GraveOne is now releasing as many nations as possible and declares bankruptcy. France is now bankrupt. Oh my god.
Oh wow, that's brutal. and the bankruptcy cap is almost there again. Look at that, 3 million dissidents already. Only 1.7 million coming in from Aldra. The money is still flowing in. If we quickly look at Aldra for just that comparison, it looks far more stable, which is a weird thing to be looking at and thinking is a bad thing.
Oh no. This is going to be very difficult for Aldrahill to turn this around. And, you know, I think I don't want to speak too soon, but I think TheGraveOne did a better job at ruining the nation. That monocle is right now coming into play. Definitely a lot of deviousness going on here.
Yep, absolutely. And they're getting very close to the wire here with the final 10 seconds. I do really rate TheGraveOne's ability here to have ruined the nation. That being said, now we're going to go into the period where they've got to try and build up again. Aldra could really turn this around in the growth.
Yeah. There's still an hour of build-up, and in an hour they can do a lot. If they can do that in 5 minutes, they can do a lot in an hour.
Absolutely. I just saw what was the save game name was I'm So Sorry. And I feel that's just going to sum up this entire period from both accounts. They did things to a nation there that I don't think I've ever seen in a video. And like, I'm going to be gobsmacked if either of them, in fact, can turn this around. Like, disaster saves are one thing, but purposeful disaster saves on that kind of level, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be very interesting to see.
Yeah, it's going to be so hard for them, especially since both of them did the expel diplomat spam. You're going to have no trading partners. Probably many nations are going to want to fight you. They didn't do the barracks deleting, so they still have a pretty decent sized army. But that being said, I just noticed this on the side of Aldrahill. He's going to come into a diplomatic play immediately. Denmark started a diplomatic play against France.
Wow. Well, let's throw this to the studio and find out more.
That was pretty amusing to watch.
Do you ever get this feeling when you look at like some type of destruction, if it's like after a really good party, you wake up the next morning and you look at like the destruction that's been caused and you're like, I caused this. That's kind of the feeling I have. But you know what? Let's just jump straight into one of the ruiners. GraveOne.
Congrats. I have to say, that was one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I know how to ruin a nation.
You certainly do. And I don't know if you could hear the casters, but they actually said that they think that you did maybe a better job than Aldra. How do you feel about that?
Feel pretty good. I am a charge of the economy, so I can ruin it pretty easily. That's what happens with us capitalists. We can mess things up and save things pretty easily.
So I want to know then, what do you expect to come into when you swap over to the computer that Aldrahill has just ruined? Like, what do you think? What do you think he's done? No friends. Okay.
Yeah, because I think the easiest thing to do is expel diplomats from everyone. Besides that, I'm not exactly sure what he could have done. That's the thing that I think is like the most apparent thing to do. But no friends and probably a bad economy. So that's what I'm thinking.
And do you have, because this was your pick, right?
No,
sorry. This was
he lost.
Sorry, right. Sorry. I was like very confused. So when I told you about the challenge and I told you about the nation picks, did you at that point, like, do you have a plan for France going in? Because I assume with your own pick, you're kind of like, this is what I want to do, kind of thing.
I try to make a plan for every that would work for any nation. So not like just a specific nation. I try to make a plan where it's like, what can I do in every single nation to ruin anything he picks. And so I kind of practiced with a whole bunch of different nations coming in. But that was really my strategy, was to have a strategy that could be used everywhere.
Okay.
It's a good strategy.
Well, GraveOne, we are going to let you go. Best of luck rebuilding your nation. And just remind everyone, we're going at whoever has the highest GDP after 60 minutes. So please enjoy racing that. And
Hi,
here we
Aldra.
have
Hey.
our other ruiner. How are you feeling after that?
I'm feeling very dumb. I forgot to release nations. I wrote it down and everything. I was like, make sure to release nations, and I didn't do it. So that's gonna hurt.
That was very quick, though. I know that you guys had 5 minutes, right? And you were on speed 5 the entire time, which is not shocking. Yeah. But yeah, I could kind of see you, getting lost a little bit, because it's like, okay, you have the 5 minutes, and how much can you destroy, and where do you go, and what menus do you go to? So
Yeah.
I have to say, it was pretty amusing to watch what you did decide to do. And both of you, you didn't decide to declare war on anybody yet.
It's very nice of you.
That was very, very
We're
nice
honorable.
of you.
Yes.
Very honorable, yes.
Sorry. I had such a good question, and now I remembered it. Smart. I'm not that dumb. Now, 5 minutes can either be like a lot of time or no time at all, depending on what you're trying to achieve, right?
Sure.
Do you feel like there was a lot more you could have done if you had, for example, 10 minutes rather than 5?
That felt like 4 seconds. If it passed instantly, I could have done like 20 more things, like releasing nations.
Okay.
But I'm reasonably happy, but I wish I'd released.
And finally, what do you expect to see when you start the game here? The game proper.
I expect to be destroyed. I expect to have all of Europe against me, like a third coalition war, and probably bankruptcy.
Okay, well, good guess. We're gonna let you
Don't let that scare you.
we're gonna let you get to your save. You have 60 minutes to save France. Best of luck.
Wow. So, how do you think one or both will be able to dig themselves out? Or do you think they're both kind of screwed?
Part of me, one of the things I didn't want to talk about, and I started wondering, because they were so good at destroying things, I was like, is the best strategy here just to pause the game and wait 60 minutes?
I mean, they could, but I don't see either of them doing that.
No,
but they definitely could. Do you think that one has an edge over the? Do you think that one did a better job destroying the country than the other one?
At least from a map perspective, releasing nations seems like the big difference from what we see between the two ruins, essentially.
I think the TheGraveOne may have ruined it a little bit more than Aldra did. So it'll be interesting. We never know, though, because in reality, Aldra could dig himself out. He could do a better job.
I mean,
they
have 60 minutes to prove themselves now, and the people who will be watching all of that are, of course, standing by.
Our favorite casters.
Exactly. It's Midgeman and Absolute Habibi.
So our adrenaline has now dropped a little. We've recovered. We're back on it. Habibi, predictions here. Just before we get in, have you got any final predictions before this actually we watch the world burn?
I think the initial stage is going to be the craziest for both sides, right? Everyone hates France on both sides. I think both of them, they're going to have to deal with potential coalition wars or potential nations just chain warring France right off the bat. But, these are two pretty good players. I think that in the given hour, they can turn this around and at least bring it back to how it was before the nation was ruined.
Well, I'm going to tell our players to get going so we hold back the action no longer and let us get into the game if we possibly can. So currently, TheGraveOne, like I said, he's probably got the easiest scenario to build from. He's not in bankruptcy right now. He's just got a lot of people angry. Serfdom didn't go through, so if he can cancel that out, that's going to put him in a decent position as well. One thing I was wondering, however, the whole releasing nations point of it, Is that as beneficial as people think? Because also at the same time, you'd be getting rid of quite a lot of dissidents, no?
Yeah, you definitely do. The problem I think with releasing nations is that since everyone hates you, it's very likely when you try to regain the land that random nations are just gonna join against you in the diplomatic play. And actually, if we go straight to Aldrahill, he has 2 diplomatic plays going against him. Denmark already has 107,000 troops coming in against him, and also Sweden is doing a diplomatic. Yeah, this is actually going to be pretty crazy. They're asking only for war reparations, so I guess he can just give that, but that's just going to continue this debt spiral. He's in a double bankruptcy right now, and he's losing 41,000 pounds a week right now. This is crazy.
Yeah, that's absolutely devastating of a start. The real thing will be if Uldra comes back from this. What a comeback it will be, because like he looks to be in this really, really, really rough situation right now.
Yeah, I'm not sure how he can get out of the debt spiral. He is turning up his tax, but he does have basically a quarter of his population in this in revolt essentially, and that is definitely impacting his output as well as his taxation. He is now noticing that the TheGraveOne did change everything to the most expensive type, so that will help out a little bit in the production methods. And he is now kind of stabilizing, but still the debt spiral is continuing.
Yeah, the debt spiral is going to be really, really tough to get out of. That being said, if there is a person to do it, I've got some good money on Aldrahill. I've got a bit of a history with Aldrahill. I know he's a very competent Paradox player, so I don't think we can count them out for sure.
Oh,
that
for sure.
Said,
No.
That being said, look at those relations on the side there. Look at that. Everybody hates you. I'm sorry, Uldra, but everyone hates you. As a counterpoint to that, if we go back to the TheGraveOne's perspective right now, it looks pretty positive. All the debt that the TheGraveOne's accruing is because they're building right now, and this looks, pretty darn positive right now. So, in terms of any perspective, or if people at home aren't as familiar with Victoria 3 as they are other Paradox games, explain GDP and just give a rough estimate on what people need to kind of do to raise it. Because there's quite a few factors that people can do to try and, get the money, the green line going up. But
yeah,
let's give a quick overview on that.
Well, GDP really determines on the goods that you are producing. The higher value goods that you're producing, the more GDP will rise. So there is definitely ways to, I wouldn't say necessarily cheese it, but there are ways to basically get a lot higher GDP per output. Of course, like raw goods tend to have a lower cost than, luxury goods, for example. I think, though, on the side of the TheGraveOne, he'll be focusing more on getting those goods out and getting a good industry and building that up. Meanwhile, Aldrahill, he's more focused on regaining his French land because, of course, that's just an easy way to increase GDP is just conquering more land. And also, stopping the debt spiral, of course, something that we've already mentioned. And you can see he's already trying to reconquer the south side of France. And yeah, that's like a big part. But as I was saying, Midgeman, Great Britain is in the war against him, and he had to give up. Already not looking that great.
Yeah, that's really rough. Having Great Britain on the borderland as well, especially in this Victoria timeline when, the namesake is the British monarch of the time. They're not a pushover in any stance of the word. So I think Uldra's going to have to make some real Hail Mary plays. And one of the things I think I would like to see is kind of almost forget about the areas of central, like normal France proper to regain and maybe look abroad, look elsewhere, maybe real interesting provinces, say like The various provinces in Madagascar is the Victoria favorite of places to take. There's a huge amount of coal in Madagascar, as well as you can get some, I believe, silks and dyes, which are very good goods. There's also Vietnam is a very, very good grab in the like Indochina region. Anywhere that can get opium, I think opium might be a big turnaround, especially if you're a European power and directly having a control of a large opium supply really could start fudging the budget back into your favor. But Aldra's in a real sticky wicket right now.
I think here Aldra's got to maybe balance the economy, and then they're playing on speed 5 here, the namesake of the channels. They're playing on speed 5 here. You need to get people to start liking you, because right now even any play, there's someone's going to join. Even if he goes for Indochina, probably the Qing will join. If he goes for Madagascar, probably Great Britain will join again. So I think he needs to just play out the time and rebalance the economy. I think that's his focus right now.
Agreed, but one of the things about France being as powerful as it is as a nation to start with, there is a lot of diplomatic points to play with. So getting those opinions back up, you can do quite a lot of them at once. It's not like the same as someone who is so it starts as a secondary or even a tertiary power. You've got that major power status that currently running almost 2,000 in the diplo point scenario. You're going to be able to get those opinions up again relatively quickly.
Yeah, and we can already see that. He's already gotten multiple major powers to at least cordial. So he's already on that. But still the economy not looking that good. He is still more than halfway towards a third bankruptcy.
Oh, that is rough. Meanwhile, the TheGraveOne sitting pretty with a large amount of gold stockpiled. Currently as well trying to improve those relations as both players did sacrifice that positive relation everywhere and expel those diplomats on a mass exodus. Oh, I'm tripping over my own words today. And there's an election result here in France. Let's see what ended up. One of the things I noticed, I think that Aldra did to the TheGraveOne that I didn't notice if the TheGraveOne did to Aldra was the first thing went in was Aldra changed the government and made the government's unity very, very low. So I think it's a very all-round government right now in terms of who got voted in, which can have its benefits, but is also, it's going to cause distance if they try to change away from what the population vote for.
Yeah, it is quite important to balance your government in Victoria 3. Like I was saying earlier, dissident can cause production as well as decrease in tax, and of course, when you're trying to build up your GDP as fast as possible, the amount of money you're putting in and your amount of goods you're producing is incredibly important. And speaking of Hail Mary plays, Aldrahill now instead of going back for his French land, he is now fighting in Belgium. However, Russia has decided to help Belgium, and now there are Russians on the border in France.
Oh no! Oh,
he is making a positive balance.
It's a positive balance, but look how close he was to that next bankruptcy. And obviously, is it the same as other Paradox games? And bankruptcy has a negative modifier on troops?
Yes, it does. It has a -50, I think, on basically all stats.
Oh, which is going to be really rough, considering how much in Victoria, like the combat system is extrapolated. Those modifiers are really gonna hit hard and cause this to struggle.
Yeah, and you can see he gave up to Belgium, so that's another. I believe that's the third nation that he's giving war reparations to. But now he's going for Brittany. He's gonna just keep trying these diplomatic plays, I think, and just keep praying that no one joins and trying to reclaim land. Because, like you said, he has to do something extreme. There's no way, just from the release nation factor, there's no way that he can beat the GraveOne, especially since economy in Victoria 3 is exponential. Economic growth is exponential. He needs to get back. He needs to do something to get some land and grow his GDP exponentially. And he's right now still trying everything on his border. You know, he tried for South France, Occitania, it failed. He tried for Belgium, it failed, and now he's going for Brittany. As he backed off of the play because again someone joined against him. Will he try going out of Europe? I think honestly that might be the best play. Like you were saying,
so too. Yeah, I really think so too. I would be looking around that sort of East Asia, Eurasia, in like Indonesia, sort of maybe Spice Islands area as well, because there's a real repository of good goods there that will do really well in a local market. And opium's a big one.
Yes.
Sulfur's a big one. Coal is also a big one on that. Yeah, currently we're looking at Aldra having 13 million just over in GDP, whilst the GraveOne is storming away with almost 40 million.
Yeah, you can see the exponential growth. That was a growth of 7 million in less than 3 minutes, Midgeman.
Wow.
Yeah.
I would really like to see if what do you think we're going to see as an end goal sort of GDP here on both parties? What would you think is achievable for one, but also what would you like to see in terms of an end cap after the hour?
I think if GraveOne keeps playing at speed 5, he could probably reach like 500 million GDP. That's not
You
even.
really think so? Wow.
Yeah, it's in Victoria 3, economy is exponential. Once you get the ball rolling, it just keeps rolling and it keeps rolling. I don't think Aldrahill is completely out yet. It's going to be a very slim chance that he could somehow overcome. I do think that the GraveOne's going to have to make some critical mistakes for him to edge forward, but I think it would be pretty good if he reached 50 million by the end of this.
Yeah. I agree. I'd really like. I mean, we could dream for the billion, can't you? Because that's the achievement after all. But yeah, I think it's good. The thing is as well, if Aldra can get like lucky, get one of these invasions going like properly, like without someone stepping in and start reclaiming that land, like you say, everything is exponential, so it will start the ball rolling even further. So, you know, if the GraveOne hesitates for too long, being paused, for example, for a little bit too long, there is still a chance that Aldra could just, you know, roll on by if the tide turns for them.
Yeah, I think right now the ball is in the GraveOne's court. I personally love the underdog story. I tend to be an underdog in a lot of situations for some reason, but but if Aldrahill can come back and somehow win this, it would be absolutely legendary, and that's what I'm praying for, honestly.
Yeah, no, absolutely the same here. I think everyone loves an underdog story, and I will say, I'm surprised at how quickly Aldra has actually stabilized what looked like a game that you would, well, on any day of the week, just go, no, I'm restarting this. This is going in like the PC trash and then burnt. And then honestly, at this point, you might want to put it onto a separate thumb drive and then just physically trash that thumb drive. You know, it was that level of cursed in terms of a save. But Aldra has relatively brought this back.
Yeah, the one issue is that in order for him to make a positive balance, you can see this, he's kind of stopping the construction. And stopping the construction means the ball has completely stopped. And you can see that he's trying to get some construction out, build something, and then pause the construction. Build something and pause the construction. I think that will get him eventually out of the stat situation, but it won't pull him ahead.
Yeah, I agree. We are seeing the GraveOne also creep up in that GDP. It's now up to 41.1 million. Aldra still around that 13 million mark. But again, that's because, as you said, it's down to that that construction stopping. It's just that debt spiral is still being a little bit painful. Really real. I think it's the biggest thing that's hampered him. Less so than the land lost, but the debt spiral that occurred. That's the real crux of what Aldra is battling up against. Because even with the amount of land lost, France is still a pretty large size with a large population as standing total right now. It's still 21 million. You can do a lot GDP wise with that, but the problem is there's just no money to play with right now.
Yeah, there's no money, and we even saw right now he did delete 2 construction sectors, and then he puts construction sectors into the queue, then pauses them right before they finish, and then as he gets more money, he lets it finish. He knows, you can tell that Aldrahill knows. He knows that you need to construct things, you need to be building things, you need to get the industry going, even if it does mean that you will be going back into the negative. Maybe the released nations could come into his favor. If you saw for a moment there, Brittany has started building fertilization plants, so chemical plants, I should say, rather. So maybe when he gets the land back, there'll be some buildings there for him, if he does get the land back, that is.
If he gets the land back, I think that's where this is going to be the crux on. TheGraveOne here just actually finishing colonial exploration, so we're going to see some colonies being put out by TheGraveOne's France here. Also, the ball's still rolling. Look how many construction points are being utilized. Comparing that to what Aldra was outputting there, it was something about 35. I think you can confirm for how many Aldra's putting out, but 210 being utilized right now from TheGraveOne.
Aldrahill has just increased up to 41, but it is, a factor of 5, basically, for TheGraveOne.
Yeah, again, though, that is just astonishing. So, if we look at the destruction element of this, that quick 5 minutes that was happening there, Aldra was like, he had it written down and he said, I should have released nations. I was meant to release nations. I forgot to. Is that the main crux of the issue here? Or do you think it's more that debt spiral not being forced out in a way, shape, or form?
I think TheGraveOne was the release nations did play a factor, obviously, but I think TheGraveOne was much more efficient on making him lose Aldrahill's save, making him lose much more money much faster. You saw him; he went to the highest level of building methods. He went to the highest level of army, and he also built an insane amount of construction sectors. That is an easy way to begin the debt spiral, and he did it so fast that by the time Aldrahill got on the nation, he was already bankrupt twice.
Yes.
But definitely both played a factor.
Do you think there's a way of doing that even faster and even more so, getting more bankruptcies out? What would your tactic going into this be?
I think the key also is knowing the menus better. I think one thing that slowed down Aldrahill was that he was manually expelling diplomats, while TheGraveOne already had like the macro builder for it, and he was just clicking, almost looked like a auto clicker with how fast he was clicking. I think that if I was doing this, if I was in the players' positions, I would actually practice that 5 minutes of ruining multiple times, because it seemed like TheGraveOne had it down to a T. He like immediately knew what to do and immediately went to doing everything.
How do you think this will go? Oh no, go ahead.
Speaking about comeback, you can see now that the debt situation is being solved and he is able to build. He is now increasing finally in GDP, and he's now making a positive balance of 20k pounds almost. Yeah, but I think if I
there's a revolution brewing right there, right? I think on all of there.
There is a government issue on the side of Aldrahill, a very big government issue. Maybe he can hold
what is France? What is France without a revolution? Let's face it. It's kind of it's kind of like the status quo really in this period for France. But yeah, how do you think this will like compare when if in the second half of this we see this on, say, a much smaller nation, something that isn't as huge and dynamic as France? Do you think it will diplomatic macro will have as much weight, or will it be even worse to have annoyed everyone?
I think it would be even worse to annoy everyone, right? Because if you just immediately get annexed, I'm not even sure how the rules would work with that, if you just die immediately. But I think that the debt spiral will be even faster, right? Because you only need to build maybe like 4 or 5 construction sectors before you're losing an insane amount of money. Of course, as a smaller nation, you can't release as much, especially if you're just one state.
Yeah.
And revolution has triggered for Aldrahill.
Yep.
He's gonna switch sides.
I mean, that's actually quite in his favor, right? What was the revolution for? Did we see? Oh,
it was to enact
peoples.
Yeah, it was to enact census suffrage, but this is actually quite genius because he went from having 8 million dissidents to just 297k.
Yeah, look at that. And winning this is only going to make his GDP a lot better because he's going to have that far less distance. This is going to be a real changer. This hilariously, the country being so broken might have fixed it for him.
Yeah, actually, and I believe that now that he's tag switch, he loses a bunch of the debuffs that he had before. I'm not sure how that works. I'm not sure how that works because I haven't found myself in these kind of positions often, but a lot of things
I've
reset.
Never lost this badly before. Yeah. Totally agree.
Yeah.
It's like we're in new territory, even as casters. We're watching this and I didn't know the game could break this hard. So,
and he did just get an achievement from playing this.
Yes, he did, from switching sides on the thing.
Viva la revolution!
I wonder if there is a point in which you can break a nation so hard that it does become a net positive. We might actually be finding that right now with Ultra. It's gotten to a point where I think possibly this is going to be a lot better for them. That debt is going to be a lot better. The GDP has gone down by about 1 million there, and they have regained quite a few dissidents. But
yeah,
honestly, that's probably not too bad an outcome.
Yeah, it's not too bad. All he has to do right now here is just delete some construction sectors, and he's making a pause balance while making 100. How is the TheGraveOne doing?
The TheGraveOne is doing swimmingly. It looks like nothing happened. Almost up to 50 million GDP. Dissidents is getting a little high, up to 4 million, but against a 38 million total population, that's not too bad at all. They're currently trying to pass right of assembly and get just general welfare going up, and they're looking for a puppet war here against Algeria. Interesting.
Yeah, that is very interesting. Yeah, it's curious to say that there hasn't been a lot of conquests going on, right?
Yeah, I agree. I think personally, maybe that's just the warmonger in me, but I think I would have been conquering at least like little provinces elsewhere. I suppose it depends on the diplomatic situation. If the diplomatic situation was so bad that no wars could be started, then obviously that changes things. But again, I'd be looking at those like sort of cash resources that aren't necessarily in the European theater, and trying to make some money from that. That TheGraveOne's role-playing a capitalist. He's going to look for that cheaper labor and that quick profit. So I think you will see more of that abroad than you will in the French mainland for this period of history.
it's also the safer play, right? Because if you end up getting into a war where, you know, great powers end up joining against you, you're probably going to have to give up war reparations, which is 10% of your economy for, I believe, 10 years. So it is the riskier play. And as the GraveOne, if you know the save that you gave to Aldrahill, you'll know that you're in the much better position, right?
Mm-hmm. Of course, both of our players don't actually know how the other is doing right now. So the GraveOne will be running with the mindset of, technically, Aldra could have a lot more GDP than him because whatever he did to break the country didn't perhaps work. So there is that to bear in mind here. Was that moving to mercantilism? I don't know about that, away from protectionism. Protectionism is very good for generating... Honestly, it's one of my second... I think it's my second favorite policy to be on outside of protectionism and free trade. Like, I don't know about mercantilism.
Maybe he knows something we don't.
Yeah.
I would agree with you, though. And what I was saying exactly happened to the GraveOne. Great Britain is now up against him. There is no ports in Algeria, so Great Britain will have to try to do a naval invasion if he wants to intervene here. Of course, if he can occupy Algeria before any naval invasions are able to successfully land in France, then the war will be over. But you can see that he has already conscripted a lot of troops to basically counter that, so he can get into this war and not have to give up anything to Great Britain. Meanwhile, on Aldrahill, the ball is starting to roll. He's up to 115 construction, 17.6 million GDP, and the debt is almost gone for the first time since he's played the save. I could say it's safe to say he's kind of saved the situation.
Yeah. If this was just a save the save on Aldra's channel, this would be towards the end of the video. Like, it saved the situation, and honestly, that in itself is a miracle, because this save was so broken. It's so absolutely broken. Hovering there over... with the current government he has in power, there is some seriously good policies and stuff that Aldra could get in there compared to the GraveOne, because the GraveOne is really struggling to pass laws, whereas Aldra's government seems more open to some of those laws that will really help that GDP start to grow.
Yeah, the benefit of going through a revolution, right? He has a completely different government.
That's true. Viva la revolution. So what we're saying is the guillotines worked.
Yes, they definitely did. And the capital of France for Aldrahill right now is in Dijon. It's no longer in Paris.
Really? Yes. Yeah. So, yes. So Aldra is the empire of mustard now. Looking at the GraveOne situation as well, it's not as clean cut. The British are invading French colonial holdings right now. There also seems to be a naval invasion going on, from what I can spy. It's not a clean war thus far. I mean, they are starting to beat Tunis, and that will start to tick. But Britain is trying to liberate Corsica. So this war isn't going to end as soon as Tunis gets out.
Yeah. So he is fighting Great Britain and Tunis right now. That is going to be the challenge for him right here. Again, like I was saying, if he ends up having to give war reps to Great Britain, that is definitely going to slow him down. You know, especially when he's had the ball rolling for so long, it would really hurt him. And you can see that him managing this war is actually making him fall behind in time. Aldrahill has been just running speed 5 straight this entire time, and he's almost ahead 4 years in game time.
Wow, that's actually quite a big gap at this point. And that GDP is almost up to 20 million now. It's really the catch-up game is going. And with 30 minutes still left of the session, Aldra could do this. Aldra could really do this at this point.
He actually can, because keep in mind, Midgeman, that he still doesn't have like half of his lands. Half of his lands are still in the hands of AI.
I just want to also point out that the British managed to get a port in the whole Algeria section. Oh, he did manage to just piece out Algeria just in time. The British managed to get about 100 divisions down into Algeria, and it was an active front. They are not out of the war right now, and the war support, I think it's called in this game. I can't remember the who's winning is currently even. It's real interesting. So I need to just quickly get a message to Studio right now. If they could get me a log on for the remote control that I was using. My free account just run out of its trial, and I can no longer change what scene we're on.
Oh no!
Of all the technical issues I'm having today, that was an interesting one that I did not think about. Either way, interesting. So we're gonna have to let you report on what's going on with Aldra right now, because I think I've got the vision on the TheGraveOne correct.
300 million GDP. No, I'm just kidding. He is now doing a reconquest war on Brittany, and both USA and Russia are supporting Brittany right now. So I'm not sure if he's going to give up on the play. He's got a last chance right now. He's pausing. I believe he's thinking about it. Oh, he's on pause. He's decided he is going to try to rush down Brittany before the Russians and America could come. Of course, he no longer has his debuffs. The one issue, though, is that he has forgotten to upgrade his units back. If you do recall, Aldrahill did decrease his unit types in order to increase his revenue. However, he forgot to do it, bring back his unit types before the war. There is a debuff for, I believe, 1 year when you change your unit type. So he is sticking and staying with the older unit types, and he is now holding the line against Russians in Brittany. And
in the meantime, the TheGraveOne, I think, has gotten out of the war now. Almost 60 million on the GDP front. That is a sight to behold. Again, also I will say the radicals are climbing still, but there's still almost 500k loyalists as well. So looking pretty stable there. Currently the #2 producer worldwide of tools. That's really interesting. I'd really love to see the who's the world producers in each of these saves as well. That would be really nice to see at this point, just to get those comparisons.
Yeah, that would be definitely very interesting to see. Definitely very interesting to see. I think, like I was saying, it's the key here is to get the high value goods, right? If you want to increase your GDP the most. Of course, when you're a major power, you are in your own market, right? You're completely in your own market, so you do need to produce all the raw goods as well as all the necessary goods to get your economy going, such as tools. But if we see on Aldrahill, he's trying to get engines out, and he is also trying to get out furniture, munitions, and he is still holding the line against the Russians in Brittany. It's quite hilarious seeing 100,000 Russians trying to push the front on the side of Aldrahill. But he is going to, I believe he's going to be able to eventually peace out the Russians. If he keeps doing enough casualties to them, they should eventually want to white peace. And then it's just Brittany, who has exactly 0 troops. So it would be a very quick war from that point on. And there you go. Yeah, he was able to get a white peace on Russia. And now it is just Brittany.
Wow, this is going to be good gains here from Aldrahill. And again, that's going to only push up his GDP. And again, like you said, it's collective. The more GDP that you have, the more it's going to grow, and the more economy, essentially the room the economy has to expand. So we'll see that number of that 21 million from Aldra only go up faster. The real question is, can he do it faster than the rate that the TheGraveOne has had since, because they've been able to go since the beginning of the session, essentially, in terms of growth.
And that's Brittany conquered, another 2 million GDP for Aldrahill. I think the key here is to just not pause, right?
Yeah.
You're gonna need to just not pause and just keep the ball rolling, keep the exponential growth rolling. One thing I do like to mention is that Aldrahill started declaring interests outside of Europe, specifically in West Africa, as well for some reason on Australia, which is quite interesting. I don't know what he has planned there.
Is Australia fully colonized right now, perhaps? Maybe it's looking to be a colonial sector. Maybe hopefully get some gold mines, perhaps?
And here's the diplomatic play against Sweden. He is slowly regaining back France. Who will join now? It is Spain joining on the side of Sweden.
That's a little bit rougher. That's two relative naval powers there, and I believe the Swedish province does have a port, or maybe it doesn't. It's a little bit hard to tell.
It does, in fact, have a port. The thing is, though, now he did upgrade his units to the most updated unit type, and he also got the researches to have the better unit type. So he does have a technological advantage against Sweden. He should, at least. Unfortunately, I'm unable to click on Spain and Sweden to see what units they're using. But I do believe that he does have a unit advantage compared to Sweden, at least, because you can see that the game is already telling him he has an advantage despite having equal numbers.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's just quickly jump back to the TheGraveOne here. Let's have a look at what they're doing. Up to 65.2 million now. This is a big thing about the TheGraveOne's playstyle right now. Spending a lot of time on pause. You just went on about how not pausing right now is going to be, the thing that saves Ultra. I think pausing here for the TheGraveOne is the only thing that's going to hold him back. It needs to be speed 5 all the way. The gap needs to be extended because Ultra is going to be coming on the comeback very, very rapidly as soon as these wars begin to kick off. Also, just look at that diplomatic play currently going on for the TheGraveOne. Look how many people he's trying to consolidate with. So many hostile nations, just I'm sorry, I take it back. I didn't mean to expel your diplomats. I just had that. I had had an aneurysm, and yeah. Also, one thing as well right now about the TheGraveOne is they are hugely radical in their government, but they have very low stability from it, and the government currently can't push anything through. So that right of assembly enactment has been stuck there for about 20 years. With absolutely no movement whatsoever.
Yeah. TheGraveOne's still in a commanding lead, almost now triple the GDP of Aldrahill. And you can see, I think he's doing all of the relations thing is because he's going to start doing the colonial play. Really quick way, something that I forgot to mention, one really quick way to increase GDP is going for the modern day Nigeria area. There's a crazy amount of pops there and crazy goods. Yeah, and that's something that you can go for actually day one as any nation. I'm now remembering one of my playthroughs where I played as Sardinia Piedmont, and I immediately went for that, and it doubled my GDP. Of course, you're gonna have to deal with the dissidents in the local area, but it's not something that you can that is impossible to deal with.
Yeah, the TheGraveOne here also eyeing up South America. That's an interesting region to try and expand to. Not very high in population, but the natural resources there are fantastic. And there we see that unacceptable government that is sat there. Very, very low stability there. Completely and utterly. Let's quickly jump back to Ultra as well. Just like you said, the TheGraveOne has 3 times as much. But 26 million now for Ultra. This is looking far better than the situation even 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, it's looking great. He won the war against Sweden and Spain, despite both of them landing in France. He had, and being outnumbered, he did have the superior unit type. And now he's doing the diplomatic play on Occitania. Ooh, someone just joined and jumped up to 500. 600, Austria. Another nation has joined.
And Spain.
Oh my.
Austria and Spain, that's going to be a contiguous front line, and there's ports. So they are going to be on that border. Ultra needs to back out of that war. Then there needs to be if he can, it needs to get out of that war. There's nothing that he can do to stop that. I don't think he could sway anyone in there. Oh, is it just? It's just war reps. It's just war reps right now.
Yeah.
Back down, Aldra. I think you got to get out of that one.
This one does not look like he can win. He potentially could have. Oh, is he gonna go for it? The thing is, a technological advantage on troops is very important in Victoria 3. Just being up one unit type, you can win with a superior number of forces. And then one thing you can do is you can put your forces on a defensive order. And since in most phases of Victoria 3, defense is a lot better than offense, you can basically wear down the other parties by just making a stalemate, having them gain no gains. They will eventually wipe peace. That could be his strategy here. And I think he's going to go for it because he's now adding more. He's adding more states. He's gonna start conscripting more troops. I think he has to go for it. If he just gives up the war reps, and he somehow Occitania backed down. Occitania backed down.
Wow, how much land did he get?
He got one state, unfortunately, because they just backed down.
Okay.
He didn't get the 3 states that he wanted. He did get refunded on some of the infamy, but yeah, they backed down.
I love the little cheer there from Aldra, where he just stretched his arms up like, "Yes, I've done it." Okay, now back to my machinations. Okay, look at that. Now 26 million GDP, 11 million dissidents. That's a little bit rough. Might want to get those down. So going back to what you were just saying though about the troop types, is it possible that in these early recovery periods, the first thing you want to do is just military tech, just really hardcore go on to the military tech?
The problem with going the military tech first is that the better units are more expensive. And they're not only just more expensive, they can sometimes be like doubly more expensive. And something you saw that both players did in order to make money immediately was that they decreased their unit types so they can make more balance. I think that initially you do have to get like the initial ball rolling, and then once you have like a stable income, you go for the unit types and then you start doing conquest. That could be a really good idea. Yeah, like I think that when you're in this short period amount of time, conquest wars are really important. And you can see here that Aldrahill was able to get a lot of land despite other nations joining against him, just simply by having those advanced technologies.
Yeah, that's honestly a masterful play there from Aldra on that sort of front. Is that, I think Brittany just rose up from beneath them. But look at that, a colony is going down now for Aldra. This is far more stable than we ever could have like almost imagined giving him credit for at the beginning of this, because the TheGraveOne really did a dirty on him. Speaking of, let's flip back to the TheGraveOne right now, because there is quite a few conflicts going on. I don't think they're ones, no, they're not ones that France is directly involved in, just has vision on now because of these diplomatic interests elsewhere. But look at that, almost about to beat the 80 million threshold. You said what, 500 million? 500 million? I don't think we're gonna quite get there, but 100 looks pretty doable.
Yeah, I was seeing the time rolling by early on, and I just thought that they would just keep it going on speed 5. Yeah, that would be pretty hard, reaching 500 million. But 100 million is definitely in the books, I think, for the TheGraveOne. Yeah, I think right now for the TheGraveOne, it's going to come down to doing successful conquest wars.
Yeah. And look at that, they're actually going for a large one against... Is this puppeting Brazil, by the looks of it? I'm not sure who's joined on the enemy side, because it's now got about 400 divisions against... But, I mean, if he pulls this off, this could be a very good game. Oh, it's Britain. It's Britain and Brazil. That's... If Britain's navy is still floating about, then getting over there isn't going to be that easy. Otherwise, he's only going to be pushing through Guyana, and that will hurt.
Yeah, I think he's just going to have to put his troops in before the war begins. One thing he's going to have to worry again, of course, is the naval invasions, because he is against Great Britain. Mm-hmm. I think what he might do is he will just send his normal troops out to the front lines across the world, and then just basically use the conscripts as garrisons back at home.
Yeah, that's a good shout.
Yeah. And going back to Aldrahill, the growth now is truly exponential. He's gained about 6 million GDP in just the last 2 minutes.
Wow, yeah. Let's flip back to Aldra and take a look at that, because again, Aldra is our underdog, and we really want to see him climb. He's got to double this and add 20 to even meet where the TheGraveOne is right now. And honestly, it's still not out of the question with 15 minutes left, especially with how fast he's blitzing through the game. It's currently 4 years ahead of where the TheGraveOne is.
Yes. The one downside, though, is that the truce with Occitania, since they did, unfortunately, them backing down kind of hurt him more than helping him, because now he has the truce and he couldn't just immediately annex all of Occitania in one go. And he does now have to consider, maybe conquering other things. And that's exactly what he's doing. He's now trying to get Belgium, and Russia, again, and Austria are supporting Belgium.
Yeah. Number 6 now in the powers list. I think the lowest Aldra went down to was 8th or 9th. The TheGraveOne has been sitting at 2 pretty much the entire game. But 6, still a pretty decent position to have climbed this back to. And considering how geographically small this France is compared to where it would have started, I think that's a really decent position. And like you said, that GDP is rolling now up to 35. But I think it's going up slightly faster than the TheGraveOne's is.
Yeah, there is also a year advantage. It's more than 5 years now advantage for Aldrahill in terms of in-game time. And once again, the unit tech is coming in greatly. I believe against Russia, he actually has 2 unit techs ahead. I believe so. I haven't been able to see exactly, but yeah, he's beating the Russians with less than half of the numbers, and he's just pushing through Belgium. This is going to be an easy war for him.
Yeah. Meanwhile, the war against Brazil for the TheGraveOne has just started, but no battles really are taking place because a lot of them are defensive lines against the British, trying to get the British out of this war before he goes and tries to land in Brazil itself. That being said, because they're not going to be taking any war goals against Brazil here, that war support is going to be very even, and this is just going to be a drain on the economy if this isn't dealt with soon. And especially with how often the TheGraveOne is pausing this game, this could be the breathing room that Aldra needs if Aldra's wars go in his favor.
Aldra now, 12 minutes left. He needs to do a lot. The Hail Mary plays need to come out if he wants to come out on top. Of course, he has no idea what position the TheGraveOne is in. But, if I was in his position, you would just kind of tell, like, oh, he released a bunch of stuff. I'm going bankrupt. I didn't make his nation go bankrupt. I'm definitely not in the commanding seat here. But you can see that he's going for the constant conquests. Just forget infamy. Conquest after conquest. He now just finished conquering Brussels from Belgium, giving him another boost in his GDP. And the Brazil war is still going on, huh?
Yes, we're seeing combat now in the north over here in Gran Colombia. Let's flip back to Aldra as well. I just want to check on how his war is doing. Yeah, he's actually taken that land from Belgium.
Yeah, he has conquered Brussels. He was destroying both the Russians and the Austrians. That unit tech coming in the clutch right now. And he's beginning another diplomatic play against Occitania. Actually, the Occitania Uprising, which is for some reason a separate country to Occitania. That's actually quite lucky.
Yeah, it's almost 40 million now in that GDP, which is it's now only half as much as the TheGraveOne. That gap has been closed astonishingly. That's a huge gap closed at this point. Considering there was a point at this where Aldra's GDP was 1/6, I think, of the TheGraveOne's. To be only at half, I think that's pretty good going there on Aldra. And also, we need to not forget that this is there's a second half to this. They're going to have another round of this at a different nation. So it's all still kind of a up in the air on who's to play for.
Yeah, you know, and the good thing to consider is that he's half of his GDP while missing like a third of his nation.
Yes. Yeah, which is amazing. If he can grab the rest of Occitania, there's another a little bit of a land grab there. We might see a spike, however, from the TheGraveOne any second now, as this army is starting to flip now towards taking Brazil. The war is looking cleaner. Britain is, I think, out, perhaps, and we are seeing a push through the Amazon. One of the worst places, I think, you could send a Napoleonic-era army, but this war is sort of working out for him. Puppeting here, though, how much is that going to add to the GDP, do we think? Oh, no, he hasn't got enough armies for the lines here, and he's been getting pushed back. This isn't a done deal yet. This is just taking a long time for the TheGraveOne. This is time that's getting almost wasted and giving that breathing room for Aldra to catch up still.
Well, actually, I could be wrong here, but I do believe that puppeting does not increase your GDP. What it does do, though, is that it puts them into your market and gives you a boost to your income because you get a percentage of their revenue as your revenue. But your actual GDP does not get impacted by the puppeting of Brazil. And, you know, meanwhile, the TheGraveOne is pushing through the Amazons. Aldrahill somehow got another 5 million GDP in the span of 2 minutes.
Wow, that's fantastic news. Aldra's now got is that an empress? Has he changed government type again? This turning political world of France here is rather crazy. Oh, that will be a big tech if Aldra can get it. That's the one that unlocks public traded companies. That will be a huge amount of GDP spike coming in if that can get in. But we're into the final 7 minutes now. And again, yeah, like you said, it's got to be Hail Mary plays. It's got to be absolute Hail Mary plays here from Aldra to catch. He needs to make up 44 million in GDP. He needs to double his current GDP and then some. Because the TheGraveOne is only going to keep growing in this time.
Yeah, he definitely is. And he still has that truce with Occitania. Them backing down actually really did not help him at all. But if he could get in one war and they don't back down, he could conquer the rest of Occitania in one go. Of course, the AI is not as good as building up as a player would. So realistically, it would probably only max be another 10 million increase in GDP. And that would be on the high end.
Yeah. It's got to be some real, like, okay, I need to take this entire nation now kind of scenarios here.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's going to happen. So, with this, what do you think Aldra will need to do in this next game in order to make sure the TheGraveOne has the worst time of it? Because we saw that the destruction phase from Aldra was not as strong as the TheGraveOne's. We've touched on the macro play of annoying everybody, but is there anything else, do you think, that either of these guys haven't tried that would help ruin, or yeah, what's your theories?
One thing that they didn't do that we mentioned before is deleting barracks. I think that actually we saw the TheGraveOne do the opposite. He put more expensive units in to ruin the economy faster. But if you piss off everyone, then delete barracks, you're probably going to get partitioned pretty badly. I think that I don't think Aldrahill is going to forget releasing nations. It's going to be really interesting to see what TheGraveOne will pick. Do you have any idea what he's going to pick?
No, I don't. Well, I've got a small theory we might see Austria.
Yeah, there's so many nations to release in Austria.
Yes, and the thing is as well, Austria borders more great powers.
Yeah.
So Austria borders Prussia, Russia, and the Ottomans. And has the possibility, if they relinquish control of a lot of the Italian provinces, we also might see an Italy form early, which would put almost another great power on their border. And the positioning for Austria, there is just, everyone wants to get up in Austria's business. And as we saw historically, Austria will is like a melting pot to explode. So I think it is a disaster save waiting to happen, let's say, at this point. But yeah, I think Austria would be a good choice. Great Britain is also another good choice as the start. There's a lot of releasable tags. If you let, say, India go free and Canada go free and really shrink the British market, there's a lot of damage that can be done. Ireland, Scotland can also be released. There's a lot of tags from Britain. Leaving them as just England, oh boy, you can really ruin them that way.
Yeah. I definitely agree with every point you just made. And now 2 wars. The French are actually fighting. He's now involved in 2 wars here. He's going for Flanders. He's going for Netherlands here. I'm really surprised that no player went for like the African play, but that's most likely due to being afraid of a Great Britain intervention. Of course, if Great Britain intervenes on the side of like Sokoto, for example, and you don't have like a good entry point, you just will never be able to navally invade, right? Yes. But a lot of the plays that we have seen have been done with direct borders of France, even in the Brazil play. By the way, speaking of the Brazil play, how's the GraveOne doing with that?
Did get the puppet off, and you were correct. It didn't add anything to the GDP, so we're still sitting about 84 million right now. They're currently gearing up, however, for a war against Russia. I didn't see what the declaration here was for, but either way, this is an interesting war to be closing us out. We've got 3 minutes left on the timer. And I think it's safe to say that the GraveOne is going to win this, being in the 80th million in their GDP, with Aldra sitting at about 40, if I'm not mistaken. I think they shrunk down just a little bit towards the end there, maybe going sub 40. So I think this is a done deal here on the GraveOne. It is going to be into that second game of what are they going to do next? How much destruction are we going to see? What are we going to see from them? Is there going to be any changes? Is the gentleman's agreement of no war gonna change? Do we think? If that will completely change the game as well, and I think that would make Austria even more viable. If you can set the other player to instantly be in a war, oh boy, that opens up some options on how to nation ruin.
Yeah. Despite the gentleman rule, Aldrahill still ended up being in like 3 wars immediately, right? Just because he was in double bankruptcy. But Holland just conquered now by Aldrahill. But with that truce with Occitania, he still is unable to reclaim that land. And he is reaching almost 50 million. As I was saying, like that alone was impressive considering his starting situation.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
One thing he is doing now is he's increasing all of the production methods, which will, of course, increase the GDP, the output, if he does have the materials for it. But the issue here is that he is just so far behind, and the lead for the GraveOne is just too high.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. I don't think there's any, without console commands, any way for Aldra to gain themselves 40 million in extra GDP revenue here, unless say they manage to like dismantle Britain and that in turn spiked how popular the French market was as a buying location. But yeah, I don't think there's anything that Aldra can do here. I would quite like to see in the second round of things go for a nation that we don't suspect. Like, I'd like the GraveOne to go, okay, let's not look in Europe. Let's say pick the USA or something like that as a nation to ruin. Because I've got a feeling with, say, Aldra and maybe the other places, if there's been practicing going on, I don't think people will have looked outside of the major powers.
How about the Ottomans? They kind of start... They already start kind of in the disaster, the Tasman reforms, I believe it's called. So, and that nation's already hard just to start, like, without ruining the save. and that's another nation with the releasables and many major powers nearby. It would be really funny to see someone pick like a really small nation too.
I just wonder, like, if you with the USA, for example, if you could spike the Civil War super early.
Yeah, that would be interesting to see.
And essentially lose all of the CSA. But we are at time now, so I do need to tell these two to stop. They're so engrossed with their GDP growing. Looking at it, yes, the TheGraveOne has won with 91 million to their name, almost breaking that 100 million. Slightly shy of that 500 million, but well done there to the TheGraveOne. Wow, yeah. What an interesting first half. We have to give it to Aldra for that comeback.
Amazing.
Like, it was so ruined. Like I said, I would have thrown the PC out, I think, at how ruined that save was. But he managed to claw it back and come back as a very decent world power. Like, if that was an online multiplayer, like if that was a group multiplayer with lots of players in, and that comeback would have been pulled off, I would say that Aldra would probably be the best Victoria 3 player out there, because that was some masterful work. The thing he needs to get better at is ruining the nation. He's got to get better at damaging everything. He's too good at the fixing stage. He needs to ruin it for the TheGraveOne a bit more.
Yeah, I think that's where TheGraveOne came out on top. I think given the states of the saves, Aldrahill did a better job at rescuing the save. However, his nation was, it was a multitude worse than the TheGraveOne's. He nearly triple bankrupt. He had half of his nation not in his control. And that's definitely, if I was Aldrahill, I'm just gonna have to focus on ruining the save faster.
Yes, absolutely. But with that, we've got another game to get to, but let's throw it to the studio.
Hello. Oh, my something in my throat.
Need more tea.
I'm gonna take some tea, extra tea in the break. That was I'm not gonna say more exciting. Actually, Lady Magnus, that was exactly as exciting I thought it would be when we planned this show. Exactly.
Your nose is growing. No, that was very, very exciting. I think definitely Aldra, it would have been interesting if Aldra had destroyed it as much as the TheGraveOne. Would he have won?
I mean,
that was pretty masterful on his part.
It's also one of the things we should mention is, of course, today is a GDP week. That is not going to be the metric we're using next week, sure. Which might also, flavor some of the playstyles a bit.
True.
You know what? Let's just go straight to the players and see how they felt about that. But
congratulations, the TheGraveOne. You won the first round.
Thank you.
So, TheGraveOne, how did that feel to play? It looked stressful.
It was stressful. The biggest problem I have to say that I ran into was that everyone hated me, so I had to pretty much be an isolated nation because no one would want to trade with me besides like the small nations, and they don't want to trade that much.
No one wanted to be his friend.
It's like, yeah. I wonder how that happened. Aldrahill.
Talk about stressful.
Yeah, how was it for you?
It was. I actually had a lot of fun once I got into it. The first 10 minutes were just pure blind stress. I couldn't construct anything, and I have no idea why.
One of the things we saw from the casters, and they talked a lot about it, was the fact that I think they were really impressed with the TheGraveOne's ability to ruin a nation, and then they were really impressed with Aldrahill's ability to come back from that ruined nation.
I think we all were.
Unfortunately, the ruiner ruined too hard to make that comeback as likely as possible, because it turns out that the TheGraveOne then also played a pretty decent game and got out ahead of it. One of the things I saw when I was watching is TheGraveOne, you spend a lot of time on Speed 4.
Yeah.
What the heck, man?
Yeah. So the reason why was because I decided to do wars, and I probably am not going to do it this second time because I felt like those wars really slowed me down, and I really was afraid of like blundering a war and then getting shot back even further. So I might just avoid war and then just be speed 5 the entire time. Speed 5 and 0 speed, because that's how I play, usually.
Now, that's assuming that Aldra follows the gentleman's agreement and doesn't throw you into a war during that 5 minutes. Aldra?
I'll still be a gentleman, even though GraveOne did leave me an absolutely obliterated country. It was a disaster zone. Good job.
One of the things we should also mention that, you know, Aldra, you did get into some wars and you kept at speed 5. Very impressive going through that.